Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The moment is finally here. One of my favorite episodes to do every single offseason. Top 10 players for USC rolling into 2025. Now, in preparation of this episode, I went back 12 months ago and looked at the list we made rolling into 2024. Now, we had some hits. We certainly had some misses as well. Biggest takeaway was the amount of USC fans that just let it fly in the comment section. And that's the best part about doing an episode in a list like this, where you could pull 100 USC fans that live and breathe this program. And you're probably going to get 100 different top 10 player lists from each one of those fans. Before we even get into this, I would invite the USC fans to let it rip in the comment section, whether you have some disagreements with my list, whether you just want to drop your top 10 players in the comment section. Best part about doing this is chopping it up with you guys and kind of getting a sense for where the USC fans sit with some of these football players rolling into 2025. And at the end of the day, it's an opportunity for all of us to call our shot rolling into 2025. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, do want to take some time and just thank you to the USC fans. As we get geared up for the 2025 year, I'm kind of going back and reflecting on how much we talked about this football team over the last couple of months on the recruiting trail. The amount of support that the USC fans continue to show to the fellas in the dog days of the summer was amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it rip in the comment section. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, let's start with probably, in my opinion, the most frustrating part about doing this list, and that is you leave out a lot of really good football players, some of which have very good arguments to be in the top 10, but a lot of other players are guys that maybe you can't put in the top 10 as we sit right now, but very well could be top 10 football players come the middle of October. Wayman Jordan falls under that category. You probably can't put him as a top 10 player for USC rolling into 2025 as we sit right now. From what we heard out of this kid coming out of spring, like the value we think he's going to add to this running back room wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. If we're talking about Wayman Jordan as one of the best football players on this team in October, very similar conversation for Desmond Stevens, where, as a freshman, it was good. It probably wasn't good enough to put him in the top 10, but if he takes a step with Rob Ryan, you're looking at a top 10 player on this team. And the thing with Desmond Stevens is the ceiling, the athletic profile, infinitely higher than what you had with a guy like Mason Cobb or Easton Mascarenas. Desmond Stevens, bigger, longer, faster than both of those linebackers USC was playing last year. Anthony Lucas, Braylon Shelby, Anthony Lucas just got to stay healthy. Braylon Shelby, it's like, hey, can you take that step in year 3? We know what this kid can be. We know he has the ability to be a game wrecker. Can he be that guy in the 2025 year? Big time storyline. As we talked about, the biggest question for USC on defense, can that pass rush take a step? Has a lot to do with Anthony Lucas, has a lot to do with Braylon Shelby. You look at Alani Noah, you look at Jaden, I would put them under the same category. Can we just be more consistent? You look at Alani Noah and say, hey, there are some plays that Alani Noah put on film in 2024 that make you think he's one of the best guards in the country. There's also some really bad moments. Going into year 3, can he become just a little bit more consistent of a football player? You say the same thing for Jaden. And I know it's crazy not including the starting quarterback in the top 10, especially on a Lincoln Riley coach team. Look, if Jaden puts it together and he finds the consistency, he's certainly going to be on this list as well. USC has a lot of guys that have the ability to be really good football players rolling into 2025. We just got to see them take that step. Without further ado, let's get into our top 10. I'm going to go DJ Harvey, number 10. He's about as solid as it gets. One of the more technically proficient cornerbacks that you see in the country, the 6th highest graded cornerback in all of the FBS per PFF last year. 58 tackles, 6 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, also had 7 TFLs. He's a guy that can come up and support the run. The thing that stands out to me the most is a 56% completion percentage when he was targeted in coverage on 62 targets, only 2 penalties allowed. I mean, that is about of good of a number as you'll see across the country. And then the other thing I love, 7.9 yards per catch allowed. This is a guy that doesn't allow the big play. He doesn't allow much traffic to get behind him. That's huge, especially at the college football level. If you have the ability to prevent big plays on the defensive side of the football and go make these opposing offenses go execute 12 plays, 80 yards, and score a touchdown, you're going to be in a good spot. There's not a lot of college football offenses that are going to execute 12 straight plays, not take a sack, not give up a penalty, not turn over the football. If you can be a defense that does not allow the big play, massive metric in some of the best defenses that you see in the country. DJ Harvey, he's that guy. Now, excuse me, the reason that he's probably not coming in higher than 10, at least for me, is a little bit shorter, not the fastest cornerback. So the athletic profile is not as juiced up as some of the other cornerbacks in this room, but technically one of the more solid cornerbacks that you see in the country. Can he translate that from the G5 level to the Big Ten level? And if he does, going to be one of the more solid cornerbacks that you see in this conference. Going to number 9. Now, I left off Keyshawn Silver. I left off a guy like John Jarrett. I left off a guy like Jide Abasari, who very well, all three could be top 10 players. I'm going to go with Devin Tomkins, one of, if not the most underappreciated football player on this USC team in 2024. This dude was undersized, probably wasn't quite ready to be playing the amount of snaps he was in the Big Ten. And gosh darn it, did he play very well for USC. And it's not like he's lighting up the stat sheet, 24 tackles, 3 TFLs, 1.5 sacks. This dude plays as hard as anybody on this football team. Going into 2025, the body finally feels there. He came to USC as a freshman coming out of high school around 250 pounds, more of a basketball player than a football player. Weren't really sure what it was going to look like for him. They decided to fill out the frame, move him on the inside. Coach Henne responded to one of my tweets and said, "Hey, I'm sleeping on Devin Tomkins. I'm going to rock with Coach Henne here. Give me Devin Tomkins being a top 10 player for USC in 2025. Going to number 8, let's talk about Janoris Reed, who, look, is it all that flashy to talk about this kid? No. USC was looking for a rock at the center position to replace a football player like Jonah. They found it with this kid. He's about as solid as they come. Look, is he going to be a top 50 NFL draft pick? No, probably not. Is he going to be a damn good starter for pretty much the duration of the 2025 year for USC? Yeah, absolutely. Right, 2-year starter at Syracuse. 476 pass pro opportunities last year. Look, Syracuse was throwing the piss out of the football last year. He had to hold up in pass protection a lot. 2 sacks, 15 pressures. This is a dude that he looks exactly how you want a center to look. 6'3", 320, really good feet, can climb to the second level. It's not a flashy pick. I think he's going to be really important to USC to kind of glue this USC offensive line together. Number 2, I just think he's a really good football player that gives you the opportunity to just plug and play a center and get really good production from this kid in 2025. Number 7 on the list. To me, probably the most under-talked about football player for USC rolling into 2025. Achily Arnold was flat out not good for USC. Was a liability in pass coverage. Was a guy that missed way too many tackles last year. You bring in Bishop Fitzgerald. You pair him up with Kamari Ramsey. This is to me, one of the most upgraded positions for USC on the football team rolling into 2025. 55 tackles, 7 TFLs, 8 pass breakups, 3 interceptions. What I love the most about this kid, a 61% completion percentage when he's targeted. That's an exceptional number at the safety position. Achily Arnold was bumping up on 80%. He was, and I don't mean to drag a kid, but he was kind of easy pickings. When you had Achily Arnold matched up in man coverage, teams were attacking that. You can't do that with Bishop Fitzgerald because he's a very, very solid safety in coverage. And at the same time, hey, he can come up and support the run. Had 13 run stops for NC State last year, an 11.3% missed tackle rate, only gave up 1 penalty. This is that position that I'm looking at and saying, hey, where does USC get better from 2024 to 2025? And they get better at a lot of spots, most notably the defensive line. They're going to get a massive upgrade, in my opinion, with Bishop Fitzgerald over Achily Arnold. Number 6 on the list, Cam Fountain, and it feels low, man. Cam Fountain coming at number 6 feels low. There's a chance we're talking about him as a top 5, maybe top 3 player on this USC football team. As he got more opportunities late, he was a guy that USC just didn't want to take off the field. What I love most about him is he really gave USC some much needed pass rush juice down the stretch. 13 quarterback hurries. That was the second most on the team. He barely played any football until that Friday night game against Rutgers halfway through the season. And he ended up being the most productive, or one of the most productive pass rushers for USC as a true freshman in the Big Ten. 12.1% pass rush win rate. Very, very good against the run. Cam Fountain, he if you were making a list of, and we'll probably make this list at some point over the next 2 months, if you were making a list of, hey, who are the most important players for USC to really break out onto the scene, Cam Fountain's got to be in the top 5. USC struggled getting after the passer last year. Cam Fountain is that guy that can be that pass rush weapon that USC kind of missed last year. Now with throwing Braylon Shelby, not throwing Anthony Lucas, those 3 players have very, very high ceilings. All were top 100 nationally ranked blue chip prospects that have big time ceilings. Can those guys reach their potential in 2025? And if they do, USC's defense is going to take a monster step in the right direction. Going into our top 5, number 5, Elijah Paige. It was ugly early, especially in that Michigan game. That was a redshirt freshman going on the road into the big house, going up against one of the best defensive lines in the country, and it was bad. I believe they benched him in that football game. I'm throwing out the first half of the season because the last half, the last 4 games, 0 sacks, only 4 quarterback pressures, 0 sacks in the last 9 games. Keep in mind, this kid was a redshirt freshman last year. And I know our expectations were really, really high for Elijah Paige, and he probably didn't reach those expectations in the first half of the season. Man, did he in the second half. There's a chance he's a first-round NFL draft pick after the 2025 year. He's a laboratory-built tackle that has all the physical traits to be elite. 3 penalties for Elijah Paige all season last year at the left tackle position. Mason Murphy had 10. I'm a big fan of Elijah Paige. Maybe a little bit high for some people. I'm kind of going off the projection. I'm kind of going off the trajectory. And that's what, at least in my opinion, should excite a lot of USC fans. Some of the best players on this USC football team, guy like Cam Fountain, guy like Elijah Paige, even working our way up into guys like Jacoby Lamb and Mai Lemon, they're young cats that are only getting better at the sport. Number 4, one of the best safeties in the country is coming in at number 4, Kamari Ramsey. Look, we could talk about the stats that Kamari Ramsey has. He's more of a guy that you just got to turn on the film and you'll get a real good sense of what he brings to USC. He's one of those guys that the value that Kamari Ramsey brings in terms of not only the football play, but the instincts and the leadership and the glue that he provides in the back end, there's so much value to Kamari Ramsey's game. They had a lot of guys that had to make decisions on whether to go to the NFL draft, whether to come back. Kamari Ramsey coming back was huge. He's going to be a top 100 pick in the NFL draft and has the chance to be really a top 50 pick, and he's going to be the glue for what could be a young secondary for USC in the back end. Number 3, you could go back and forth. Jacoby Lamb, Mai Lemon, who do you want to put above who? I'm going to go Jacoby Lamb at 3. And here's what should excite USC fans about Jacoby Lamb. Another conversation of a guy that's only going into year 3. Ungodly potential and talent. I mean, the contested catches, the circus catches that this kid can make, it's special. And the thing with Jacoby Lamb that you want to see from him in 2025 is, hey, I want to see you do the easier stuff at a high level. I want you to do the simple stuff at a higher level. Creating separation, being contributor yards after the catch. Here's one thing that I would like to see from USC. Give him more opportunities with the football in his hands. I think he gets a lot of attention because of the circus catches that he can make. What he can do with the football in his hands, he's got some juice. You saw that in the Texas A&M game. What I'm most excited about with Jacoby Lamb is it felt like through a good chunk of the season, like USC didn't really recognize Jacoby Lane as a difference maker for them. Like they were trying to force feed Zachariah Branch. They were trying to get Deuce Robinson on the field. Kyron Hudson was getting a lot of targets. Felt like they just didn't really realize what they had with Jacoby Lane. Now they do going into 2025. So both Jacoby Lane and our next guy, Mai Lemon, they're guys that now USC knows, hey, in our passing attack, it's going to run through those two. It's one of the best wide receiver duos that you see in the country. Mai Lemon coming in number 2. Man, is there a more solid wide receiver than him in the country? He does everything at a high level. He might not necessarily be the biggest or fastest, but when you talk about a guy that is sure-handed, that can create separation, that can be really dynamic after the catch, that's what you get from a guy like Mai Lemon. 52 catches for 764 yards. He averaged 14.7 yards per catch. So as a guy that was giving USC some big plays, he also had a 78% completion percentage when he was targeted. Good things happened when you went to Mai Lemon. You look at the big goal for USC to get Jaden more comfortable in this USC offense. I'm looking at Mai Lemon and say, that's the guy that's going to give Jaden that comfortability in this USC offense. Number 1, my guy, Eric Gentry, one of, if not the best off-ball backers in the country. He played in 4.5 games last year. Had 33 tackles, 7 TFLs, 2 sacks. Like, what does that look like if he played 13 games? A 6% missed tackle rate, 17.9% pass rush win rate, 14 run stops, was 3rd on the team. And he played less than half of the season, almost a quarter of the season for USC. This kid has the ability to be a game wrecker for USC. And I don't say that lightly because there are a lot of good off-ball linebackers. There are not a lot of great ones. And the great ones put a fingerprint on the game. Eric Gentry coming off the edge, filling the run, being a pass rusher, being able to drop back in coverage with all that length. He's a guy that you can use in a million different ways. And it felt like he was hamstrung by Alex Grinch, right? Alex Grinch just treated him as a regular off-ball linebacker. Dan Lynn, in the only 4.5 games that we saw Eric Gentry playing, Dan Lynn said, hey, you're special. You're a unicorn, and we're going to use you like that. And he was, y'all know I'm a Michigan fan, and I remember the impact that he was the best football player on the field, USC-Michigan game. But regardless of team, it wasn't close. It was him and Mason Graham, and they were just dominating the game. I love Eric Gentry, best player on this football team, a guy that I think is one of the better players in the country. We'll sign out there. Hey, please let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.